Hi, everybody. It's Jackie Schwab here, your reluctant ringmaster from the Schwab family caregiving circus. So just so you know, that is my daughter in the background. I am at the Schwab circus. It doesn't ever get quiet here. So no apologies for me. All right. So welcome to all my live viewers. It's nice to see all of you guys. And also welcome to anybody who's coming on in the replay. So today I want to actually talk about something that's kind of a big deal. I'm going to adjust my settings. My head's all floating around weird. I want to talk about labels. And the reason I want to talk about labels today is because of a situation that happened with me and a couple support groups that I'm part of. So I would like to encourage anyone who knows a family who may be struggling with whether or not to seek a diagnosis for their child, or if they're struggling with having their own diagnosis. I would really love it if you would go ahead and share the video or invite them to the video so that they can get some of the information that I'm going to share with you. Excuse me, I have to cough. Oh, sorry. So here's the deal. My daughter, Zoe, is lovely. And when she was about it's actually pretty exact. She was 2 years old. I got distracted by my own stuff. She was 2 years old, 1 month and 3 days old when we were given, she was given an autism diagnosis. And it's been a while now. She's 6.5. But I remember that first day, like it was so scary, right? And I was so overwhelmed and I was trying to be strong. And I was also like 5,000 billion trillion months pregnant. And so not emotional at all. And I was trying to kind of process all that information. I went back to my office, I remember, and I just cried. I was so freaked out. And it wasn't awesome, right? It was not an awesome experience. But we get back home and, you know, it is what it is. And we started progressing through the stages where we start getting support and services, and she got to some therapy. And there was a point early in the diagnosis where we weren't really sure if we were supposed to tell people or how to tell people, and we didn't get out much. We didn't go a lot of places, and so we didn't have to, I guess, tell a lot of people. And then I had a new baby about a month later, and so we're in the house for about 6 weeks with the new baby, and all that stuff happened. But I really want to encourage all of you who are going through those types of situations to please, 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 it's okay to disclose. In fact, in the case of our family and autism, not only is it okay to disclose, but the disclosure is the only way that you're going to be able to get some of the really important services that you need for your child. So, and so I have a whole bunch of examples, and I'll try not to go on forever about it. But the very first one was in one of our schools. Zoe went to this really wonderful school down the street called Emilian Preschool. And they're really great people. And they're like, well, what do you think? We have a couple families here that, you know, probably could use a referral. And they said, but people are really like, they don't want a referral. They don't want their kids. They don't want anyone to know, or they don't want us to tell them. And it's hard, right? Like you don't want to hear it. We didn't want to hear it. We didn't want to be told that this was going to happen with our daughter. Like, hey, guess what, guys? Like, if you don't get a diagnosis, you don't get help. Like, we had 40 hours a week for 4 years of in-home ABA services, sometimes being covered by insurance, sometimes being covered by the government, sometimes being covered by some of the nonprofit stuff. So if you don't own the label, how are they ever supposed to be okay with it? That's another point. And how are you supposed to get the really, really significantly needed help that you need to be able to kind of get through it? So I know labels are hard, guys. I know it. Like, we struggled that first year too. My husband's he's a real sweet guy. He's super quiet though, like really quiet guy. He doesn't say anything if it doesn't need to be said. So, you know, like the opposite of me. So he didn't really talk about it much at work. And then one day it came up, like somebody asked him about our daughter and about the diagnosis. And and he wasn't really sure, like, what to do. So he just said something about it. He was like, yeah, she has a diagnosis. And the guy opened right up, and he was like, oh, you have an autistic son too. And, what did you guys do about this? And what did you do about that? And it gave him, for probably the first time ever, an opportunity to talk to someone about it. And that was a pretty big deal for him. And I would assume it was probably a pretty big deal for the other gentleman as well. I mean, he didn't talk about it with his wife. She was going through enough. He didn't talk about it at work because I guess guys don't talk about stuff like that. And because my husband was brave enough to talk about it, he could too. And because we do talk about it in our family, my daughter, I have 4 children, so the other 3 kids talk about it openly, and their friends ask them questions, and all their 100 and something kids in their school that now are much more educated because they were able to ask questions because they knew a word to ask questions about. So I know these things are hard. I mean, I've gone through them. I know it's hard to own a label that's maybe not a label that you want. But I'm just suggesting that you think about in the case of it being a medical label or a label that someone you love has, if you don't accept their label, they can't accept their label. If they can't accept their label, it'll be very difficult for them to move on. And if you don't accept their label, the government and services industries cannot accept your label, and you may not get the much needed help that they need. And I think one of my mentor related folks says, it ain't about you, boo, right? This isn't your story. That part of it isn't. And I know, I remember asking my husband about it, and I loved his answer because it made me feel a little less bad. He said, it wasn't that he was worried about what people would think of him, which I knew because he's such a sweet, humble guy. He was worried about how people would treat her. He didn't want people to call her names, He didn't want people to treat her badly or treat her differently because of her diagnosis. But the fact is, she is different, and she needs to be treated differently in some cases to be considered equal, right? Which is a really hard concept, I think, for people to understand. So I'm not going to drone on and on, although I did already, about this topic. But if you know anyone who maybe is really struggling to make that hard choice to go get some help, or if you know anyone who's really struggling to come to grips with having a diagnosis for their child, please send them a video. Please send them my Facebook page. Do whatever you can. I'll happily talk to them. Send them any resources that I have. But it's really, really big deal, guys, because there's so much wrapped up in that little word, right? So much more than we think. But it's not about the bad part. It's about the parts that you don't get because you chose not to. All right, folks, I know this is a little bit of a heavy one, but thanks a lot for joining me and coming to the Caregiving Circus. This is Jackie Schwab, your reluctant ringmaster, signing out for today, and I hope you have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.